This is Sound and Vision on KEXP. Bamba has just released their 6th studio album. It's called Lucha. The project is fronted by Luz Elena Mendoza. Her voice weaves between Spanish and English in her music. After more than 15 years being based in Portland, last year she moved to Mexico, the country where her parents are from. She recently spoke with KEXP's Albina Cabrera. They discussed family, identity, queerness, mental health, the move to Mexico, and Luz's production work on the record.
I was listening Lucha. You directly expressed that Lucha explored the love, the queerness, the Mexican-American and Chicanx identity, intimacy, o sea, family, and all these aspects are not new for you. And think that you grew up with all of this. It's part of yourself. So what do you think that is different now? On what do you think that, I don't know, the moment or the feelings that made you express all of this in Lucha?
So we're all growing, right? And I'm just, living through life, adapting new tools for myself that I'd never thought that they were accessible to me. I talk, even though I'm not directly talking about mental health, but mental health is a huge thing for me. And I think that I've been doing a lot of work on myself, the last couple of years, and especially being who I am with my positionality and growing up in my community where you don't talk about mental health. And there's so much that is silenced, especially as a woman and especially as being queer. And I never talked about it. My dad still doesn't know I'm gay. My dad doesn't know that that's been this journey. So to highlight that really, I know that I'm just an echo to a lot of other people's experiences, but I'm 41, it's almost like I'm growing up. I know I'm 41, but I feel like I'm growing up in this internal dialogue of how I've talked to myself, the imposter syndrome, the anxiety that I did not know anybody cared about or had space for, especially around white people, dealing with my processing mental health around certain communities that weren't actually at the end of the day not the best. But I think me not now having somewhat of a safer space and wiggle room for me to explore my mental health and explore my queerness and explore identity in a very authentic way has really liberated a lot of these narratives that it's just ancestral trauma that just are hard to undo, especially if you live life not having validation or community to really hold that right, because people were just still following the status quo. And there was a lot of things that were just unchecked for a lot longer. And think right now that we are benefiting, I get to benefit from a lot of changes because of the younger generation really paving the way, right? And so now it's even though I'm 41 now, I'm just starting to get my bearings and and feeling a confidence that I never felt was accessible to me, and even believing in myself as being this person out there playing music. I think that it hasn't really been since maybe the last 2 years. It really hit my family. They're like, oh my God, she's doing this thing, So I'm sitting there in the closet, literally in the closet and in so many ways, just not knowing how to explore my queerness and the fluidity that is attached to all of that, or talk about my mental health and talk about the identity crisis and not being able to feel safe, So I feel during the shutdown, from spending time previously in Mexico and thinking I was going to be there and then just staying in Portland the whole entire time during the shutdown, it was hard. It was super hard. Just allowing myself to just kind of find my really, really allowed my softness to take the wheel. And it's the beginning. It's just the tip of the iceberg of of that shift with me personally of, you know, healing a lot of the things that my family still don't know how to heal because they don't have access to that. So that's like history, you know? So yeah.
Do you feel part of a scene? And how would you describe that scene? To me, I can see like your generation and the younger generation rethinking that with more intention. Do you feel part of a scene?
For me, being in the Northwest, like I have trauma of like really being like, I'm Mexican, but I'm not Mexican this way, I'm Mexican this way. And like I feel like I still have these behaviors where I'm like still like trying to like highlight these things for the awkward white American cultured community that I was around. So obviously I have my chips on my shoulders of, you know, like acomodando todo eso, right? And so yes, I have been unseen. And yes, there has been like a really important, thick, dark chapter in my life where I'm like, I just want to be seen. Once I realized that I wasn't seen, when I started to like really tackle this in therapy in 2017, conversations were being had and things were being challenged. And so I think that the urgency of wanting to be seen just comes from like trauma. And then also from times of living, you know, years and moments of not feeling seen. You know, that really does fuck with your mental health. And if you don't have no one to talk to about it, you know, especially in the Pacific Northwest, you're gonna feel a certain way, you know?
Yeah.
So
Y quiero preguntarte sobre the only collaboration that you have in the album con el querido compañero de Vendra Van Hart.
Ve amor, no necesita esperanza, ven amor aquí.
I would like to know more about that and that connection.
yo cuando tenía 23 años, no vivía en Portland yet, estaba in Ashland, Oregon. I was a body piercer and I was working at this tattoo shop. And so the tattoo artist was like, let's go to Portland on a weekend trip and do this demolition derby. I was like, all right. And Portland to me was like this big city, you know? So we go to Portland and like, I remember going to a coffee shop and I'm listening somewhere in, I don't know, Northwest Portland. And I was like, wow, this is cool. And I hear in the music that was playing at the coffee shop, like this dude singing in Spanish. And it wasn't like corridos or like música mexicana or so I'm just like listening to this guy. I'm like, what is this?
Todos los dolores ya se van y el graffiti dice Peter Pan y el zoológico es arco iris, arco irá, arco irá.
So I fucking investigated. I asked the guy, who is this? Oh, this is Scarlett Vampire. And so I fucking did my research. And in Ashland, like there wasn't like a really cool record store. So I ordered all of his CDs, everything, like a freak. And so I listened to all this stuff and like really obsessed. Then I moved to Portland, you know, when I turned like 26 years old or whatever, my best friend at the time, that I was living with at the time, she bought me tickets to see him because she knew I was like this like freak, like obsessed, like a fan. You're like super fangirl. And I go to the show. At that time I was dealing with some really intense health issues. So like my friend, you know, she was waiting in front of the Crystal Ballroom, try to create space for me because I couldn't, you know. So then I finally got to the front. We're seeing him play. And I guess around that time, he was doing this a lot with his tours where he would ask someone in the audience, be like, someone wants to play a song, you know?
No.
I didn't know that then, but I felt so he did it. He was doing it around a lot. So he did that at the show and I'm in the front. And then my friend Heather, she's like, she wants to sing a song, but I didn't do it. I didn't raise my hand. And she like was like going like this. And I was like, what? I'm like, no. And so next thing I know, he like grabs my hand, puts me on stage, and I hop on stage from, you know, trying to climb up that little whatever. And he puts his guitar on me, and then he goes back to the drum set, and I just play a song that I don't even know what I played, but like whatever song I was playing at the time. But I was like, imagine me, you know, really innocent, you know, very like just started La Bamba by myself. The health issues made me feel like I was gonna die. Like, you know, just like going through these really intense moments in that context of time. And I felt like, oh, I can die tomorrow. Like, así bien inocente. I felt like, because it was, you know what I mean? Like one of those, whatever. So from that day, I talked to him afterwards, and like we've exchanged, emails and stuff on like an innocent level. We still didn't know each other and stuff. And we just kind of kept this relationship mildly. And I reached out to him, during the pandemic, and I was like, hey, do you want to, collaborate on the song? We can do something awesome with it. Let's try to, raise some money for a nonprofit or something. Let's collaborate if you want. And he was so down.
But it doesn't matter anymore, not ever. We gave up somehow. I guess it all was. I guess it all was once before. But I don't care about those sweet mornings.
And when I got it back, I just felt like, wow, it's so wild. Like that I was like 23 years old when I heard this musician. And for me, it's just, I get teary-eyed when I think about it, because no one was there. No one knows like my trajectory as like being like, I don't even call myself an artist, but like this artist is like just writing in Spanish and English just because it was natural. And then being in the future during the pandemic, getting to collaborate with someone that like I really like authentically, honestly admired. You know?
It's full circle. I mean, I can see that a full circle, at least of one part of your career that we can have in that collaboration in Lucha, which is great.
It's anyone but the truth. To anyone but the truth. Oh, what do we do now? What do we say? We've been here before. Wouldn't you say? Wouldn't you say?
I think that I would close this conversation that I enjoyed a lot. If you can pick like one favorite song of the album and tell me why, para Luz. Canción favorita y por qué.
I mean, when I think of every single song, I mean, there's a lot of, and we didn't talk about all of that, like how hard it was to even like make this record for a lot of reasons. But we won't get into that,
What was like hard?
It's just being a woman, learning to be your own producer, having your learning curves, and then you're working with men, and you're working, like dealing with the scarcity, with like not knowing if, just a lot of things that like it would take a whole other pinche plática de hablar de esas cosas. But I'm grateful for being able to like follow through and go through some hard lessons and still give myself that grace and compassion as I'm still learning how to like really trust who I'm collaborating with, trust who's engineering it, trust, just like going through that whole process, and there's reasons for that. Again, that's a whole other plática. But for the longest time, I think my favorite song was Dibujos de mi Alma, just because it was one of the first songs that I was like, that I felt very tiernita and shit about it. And then also really excited, had this whole vision. It like changed so many times. It's like, no, it has to be like this, it has to be like that,
Tanto tiempo sin hablar contigo, sin saber de tu bienestar. Sueño tu manera cuando andas conmigo.
But I also would say that the first song on the album, I don't think the word favorite is the right word. I think it's a word that I think what I feel is I wrote the song right after I found out that a community member in our music community, Sumo, Nectali, I think that's their real name, passed from Reina Tropical. And that happened like last year, September or something. And I was here, and it really hit the community hard because it happened really unexpectedly, and just like feeling all of the things that came along with that news. And I wrote that song right after Eight. Se llama Eight. It's the first song on the record. And it was just a collage of just, the rainy summer days here in Mexico. And also I was going through some really intense health issues that lasted for almost a year. And as I was finishing the record too, like I was going to the studio, dealing with health issues, dealing with just being a new person here, and also finding out that this person passed away. And also dealing with my own feelings of like, am I going to continue to tour? Am I going to like keep, releasing music? This is painful. Like just kind of going through all that shit, like being honest, like, oh, this is not good for my mental health. Like it feels really intense. And I wrote like a little, all my songs are collages. So it's like a collage of like talking about death and life and things that just happen. And it's kind of like life is short. And it's just like a song of being like, I'm like, whoa, I'm here. Like being like, this is happy, la lluvia, la la la, you know what I mean? I'm just like talking about, it was like one of the songs I wrote. Like I wrote it while I was here. And so I put it on there. So to me, that's like it's like very special for me. So that's why.
Thank you so much for sharing that with me. And thank you so much for this conversation, Luz. It's also super powerful. Your music is very powerful to me personally. It's great to have you here on KEXP. So, muchas gracias.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
That was Luz Elena Mendoza of Bamba talking about her new record called Lucha with KEXP's Albina Cabrera. More of this conversation will be featured in Albina's upcoming KEXP podcast called El Sonido. That podcast will be launching later this month. Here's Bamba's song Luz was just mentioning. It's called Eight.
Vamos a decir, esto es el final. Nada es como antes. Nada es como era. Quiero dejarlo. Quiero dejarlo. Don't worry, baby. Don't worry about a thing. Maybe I'll be gone by the night. Tengo mucho que vivir y gozar. Tesoro, no importa, ni modo, qué suerte, la vida, la muerte. No importa, be the light, waiting for that dream to leave the light. Share my vision into one. I wouldn't dare think about it twice. I will admit I've been wrong. I'm coming home. Once and for all, what are the odds that we're alive? Don't be afraid of losing time. No importa,
That was Sound and Vision. Please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, and consider giving a one-time $20 donation to help support this show at kexp.org/sound. Thanks for listening.